know that a lot of people say, well, I ain't doing shit in life. I'm doing nothing every day. You're not doing nothing. You're not sitting there staring at a blank wall. You're doing lots of technology, which you amount as nothing, but it's not nothing. You're intellectually engaged constantly. You're constantly motivated to do things that are non-productive, but you're still doing a lot. I got bullied a lot playing video games. There was a part of me that got punished for getting excited about this. And what you will find by people who have a lot of insecurities early on in their lives, they were punished by excitement and curiosity. The truth of the matter, the sad, sad, sad truth of the matter is that human beings as organisms are driven by trauma and insecurity. I was motivated by trauma and insecurity. Getting better through therapy vanished my motivation. Help. Recently, I've been doing lots of development inside myself, really focusing on therapy, shadow work, etc. From this inside work, I resolved a wound that kept me trying to prove myself to others and majorly to myself. After this, my motivation to achieve things really disappeared. I do feel a lot better now, but my motivation to strive is gone. I never had an adult with healthy motivation to mirror and learn from. How can I start to burn other fuels to motivate myself? This is an emotional question, not a rational one. I do know that there are lots of things worth doing and striving in this world. I just can't feel them myself. How can I become more sensitive to this new fuels for achieving? So I used to be motivated by insecurity, and I went to therapy. And I dealt with my insecurities, and now I don't feel like doing anything. So my wife tells me, Alok, you should make a video about all these high performers you work with. Like, what do they do that other people don't? So I do some executive coaching, which means I'll work with CEOs, entrepreneurs, people like that. But the reason I was reluctant is, like, honestly, what separates most of the top performers from the rest of us is that they were traumatized in the right way. So I want to tell you all the story about a client of mine. Client is second generation. So parents migrated from a developing country. Dad worked really hard, became incredibly successful, went from 0 to $32 million over the course of about, let's say, 25 to 35 years of work. So after about 30 years in the workforce, they started from scratch and had a net worth of about $32 million. So as this person who came from nothing started to become more successful and started rubbing shoulders with other people who were more successful, they entered the world of the elites, right? So they became successful, and they didn't go to Harvard, but they sure as hell started going to dinner with people who went to Harvard and Stanford and went this place and that place and all these prestigious institutions and people who have vacation homes and yachts. So as this person entered this world, as the dad entered the world, they started to become a little bit more narcissistic. Maybe they were a little bit sociopathic to begin with. And so it became really important, right? So they started entering this world of, like, children as trophies, and everyone is comparing. And so they started to really pressure their kids. You got to be the best. You got to do it the right way. This is the way successful people do it. We're not going to be these scrubs. We don't care about compassion or doing good in the world. You got to be the best. You got to be the best. You got to be the best. And this is where there's another thing that I think really separates out the right trauma from the wrong trauma, which is that parents who are hypervigilant, parents who are always up in their kids' business, parents who don't let their children get away with relaxation. Those are the kids that are the most messed up. So the really sad thing is that one of the, I think, top 3 or top 5 videos in the depression guide is a video about conditional love. Basically, like, we talk about unconditional love, but for many people I've worked with who are depressed, this is a good example of this person. The reason they're depressed is because they grew up with conditional love. I'll only love you if you ... Their whole sense of self is about performance. So if I achieve, then I am worthy of love. And they'll go their whole lives trying to make their dad happy, trying to make their dad proud. If y'all want to know what separates high performers from people who are not high performers, a big chunk of them, and there's a selection bias here because a lot of high performers are loved by their parents. Arguably, I'm one of them. My parents certainly loved me, and I guess I'm doing okay now. But honestly, if y'all want to know, a big part of it is parents who don't love their kids. Dads and moms who say, if you want my love, if you want my respect, I want to be able to show you off to all of my friends. This is all coded, right? It's not super explicit, right? That's what really causes people to achieve. And I want y'all to look at some people with very public profiles, we won't name names, who are very successful. How psychologically happy do you think these people are? Are these people content? Peaceful? Is $1 billion enough? Is $100 billion enough? Is $20 billion enough? Do people need even more money? Hey y'all, if you're interested in applying some of the principles that we share to actually create change in your life, check out Dr. K's Guide to Mental Health.
So this is a guide that explores this process. How does experience shape us as human beings? Trauma is all about walling off or suppressing things that are overwhelming. They cannot control their emotions, so their emotions control them.
So check out the link in the bio and start your journey today. The truth of the matter, the sad, sad, sad truth of the matter is that human beings as organisms are driven by trauma and insecurity. Literally, the way we're wired is to be driven by this stuff. There's a really simple way to understand this. Why do negative emotions feel so bad? If you ask me my opinion, I would say shame is the most painful emotion. Now, I haven't had crippling depression in the way that some of my patients have, so arguably theirs is worse. But if you think about why is shame so damn painful, right? So our negative emotions hurt so much because they're designed to induce behavior. The number of times I got bullied in my school and was like, never again. The shame that I felt was so profound. I wanted to change. I wanted to be a different person. I wanted to show them. I wanted to work so hard. Our negative emotions are very powerful motivators. They're the most powerful motivators that we have. And there are many times, if you guys have seen some of the interviews that we do, sometimes I'll ask people towards the end of an interview when they come in with a problem, and I'll be like, do you even want to change this? And the good ones, like good ones in the sense that like the honest people, will be like, no, I actually don't. I came to you with this problem. I don't even want to change it because this is the problem that keeps me going. This is the problem that pushes me to succeed. And so if you want to know why you can't solve your problems, the first question you should ask yourself is, what is this problem doing for me? And it's scary. It's so scary, the kinds of answers that you will get. The reason that I am hopeless, because if I have hope, I can try and I can fail. And if I fail, that'll hurt a lot. So I'd rather choose hopeless. I pick despair over hope because it protects me more. So if you're someone who has been driven by negative emotions, by insecurity, I want to be someone. I'm tired of being this pathetic person. I'm going to turn myself into someone. And then you find that you have healed that wound. Oh no, now your motivation is gone. What do you do? So there are a couple of really good things. You have a lot of good stuff ahead of you. The first is to understand time. This is a huge, huge, huge problem that I see anytime I get questions, anytime people post on the internet. You will notice there is an absence of quantification. No one thinks in terms of numbers. So people will say, I tried therapy. And my question is, how long? No one ever says that. I've tried therapy 3 times. How long? What modalities? This doesn't work. I put myself out there and it didn't work. How many times? For how long? So anytime we're talking about solving problems and the advice that we get on the internet, there's no temporal quality. People don't say you should do this for this amount of time. So the first thing is when you solve your motivational problem, let's say like you heal yourself and you have no motivation, there is absolutely a lag period. This is the first thing to know. I would say it's somewhere between 3 months and a year on average. So I don't know if this makes sense. Your body doesn't create a new system while another one works. You have to fix one thing and then there is a need and then your body makes the alternate system. It doesn't plan ahead. It's just now that this motivational system is gone, other motivational systems will start to grow. And a really good example of this is if you look at the research on people who go through a quarter life crisis or a midlife crisis, they have this particular period where they have to check out. So I don't like this life. I'm going to remove myself from this life and then I will make a new life. But that period of limbo is actually developmentally necessary. There must be an intentional or even physical removal from the situation. Either you need to mentally check out or you need to physically move yourself out of this the space. Necessary. So you have to have a limbo period. That's the first thing to understand. Nothing wrong with you. If you've healed your trauma and you're like, now what? Absolutely. Because for many, many years, you've been motivated by this system. And now that the system is gone, you don't know what to do. It's normal. The good news is that this is when other things will start to rise. So your body, your brain, your mind is naturally designed to create motivation, right? So I want y'all to look at how hard people have to try to be still. A good example of this is I had a conversation with Stephen Bartlett. I think it was on his podcast, where the thought of being still and relaxing is like terrifying to him. Most human beings have a lot of difficulty being still. And I know that a lot of people say, well, I ain't doing shit in life. I'm doing nothing every day. You're not doing nothing. You're not sitting there staring at a blank wall. You're doing lots of technology, which you amount as nothing, but it's not nothing. You're intellectually engaged constantly. You're constantly motivated to do things that are non-productive, but you're still doing a lot. So the key thing here is that the positive motivators are not as evolutionary potent as the negative motivators. Curiosity gets drowned out by anxiety every day of the week. A drive to create, creativity gets squashed by shame every day of the week. And so once you enter this period of healing, there will be a feeling of no motivation, but the creativity is there, the curiosity is there, the joy for life and to experience, all that stuff is subtle. So in the yogic system, there's a huge emphasis on subtlety. They're not like these big motivational like wallops, right? This is not like dual wielding like crag hammers or whatever. These are like smaller motivational things. And here's the key thing to understand. Just because they're smaller doesn't mean that they won't provide you with sufficient motivation. They just, how can I say this? Shame will give you 100 points of motivation. Creativity, a thirst to create will give you 20 points of motivation. But once the 100 is gone, 20 will be enough. Your body will acclimatize to the 20 and you'll even start to work more. So what I tend to find is that, with people who are very, very highly negatively motivated, they can work anywhere between 40 and 100 hours a week. And people who are creatively motivated can also work 40 to 100 hours a week. It just takes time. The last thing that makes this hard is oftentimes in the process of being motivated by insecurity, we went through an active process of shutting down positive motivation. So I'll give you a simple example. I got bullied a lot playing video games. There was a part of me that got punished for getting excited about this. And what you will find by people who have a lot of insecurities early on in their lives, they were punished by excitement and curiosity. No one cared about their excitement. No one cared about their curiosity. No one cared about their creativity. It was about shame. It was about conformism. It was about being what we want you to be. Right? And when you have a parent who's worth $32 million and is like, you need to go to Harvard, I don't give a fuck if you want to be a painter. Being a painter isn't a thing. You can paint in your free time. It's not a job. There's no respect for painters. This is the real world. So there is a second step that sometimes we have to do in psychotherapy. I think it comes up on its own, which is to reawaken your positive things. You have desires in here that cause you to gravitate towards something. You're curious about something. You want to learn something. You want to help people. Oh my God, compassion. What a noob motivation. Let me make the world a better place. And over time, these voices will start to grow. They've been drowned out. The signals are technically smaller than the negative signals, but generally speaking, it equilibrates because your body is homeostatic and, caffeine stimulates wakefulness more than your brain does. But once you get rid of your caffeine, you'll be perfectly awake without any problems. So you'll just equilibrate. It takes some time, and then you may need to actively look at, okay, what am I curious about? What do I want to create? What do I enjoy about life? What is life about? This is when you get to ask those fun questions, and the motivation will come. Just have to look for it a little bit and be patient. Questions? Hi, Dr. K. Someone went this. I found that I'm in a place where I still have this fire within me to ruthless go whatever I want. Does this mean I didn't go through it? No, not at all. So I think y'all got to understand something. Like, every person's journey is a bit unique. And so oftentimes, just because you've solved your insecurity doesn't mean that all of your fire is gone. For some people, it's gone because it's been quenched. But I think there's another kind of motivation. We talk about this a little bit more on the membership side, but I think there's a kind of motivation which is like karmic debt, which is not insecurity, which is not trauma. But I do believe, I don't really know, but when I work with people, like, I think that we have some motivational system that I can best describe as karma. So we have certain karmic debts, which you will feel a natural impulse that this should be done. This needs to be taken care of. A good example is when I work with people who have bipolar disorder. Oftentimes they're quite creative. This is something that a lot of people don't understand. So bipolar disorder is maybe around 1% of the population, but 4% of the population is hypomanic without the bipolar disorder, which is like an OP build, because you only need to sleep 4 to 6 hours a night and you're highly productive for weeks to months at a time. And they don't have depressive crashes in the same way. It's like completely busted, dude. So a lot of these people are creative. And if you felt that creative drive, you know there's something in you that wants to be manifest in the external world. I would lean into that 100%. And if you have a ruthless kind of drive, it doesn't mean that you haven't healed. Like maybe your insecurity is gone and what's left, oftentimes what's left is like a healthier version of that thing. And I don't know if this makes sense, but okay, I'm going to try to explain. So you're like a human being and you have certain natural ambitions, certain natural tendencies. Let's call it a karmic debt. Then what happens if you get traumatized or you get a bunch of shame or a bunch of insecurity? I don't know if this makes sense, but that insecurity latches on to the person that you are. If I take 100 different kids and I bully them and make them insecure, the kind of insecurity they have won't be the same. Does that make sense? I can chop down 100 trees, and if I look at the rings in the middle, they're not going to all be the same. Trauma may make us insecure, but the way in which it makes us insecure is specific to who we are. So oftentimes that insecurity latches onto or takes control of a natural impulse. And here's how you kind of know, right? So when I'm insecure or when I'm made to feel insecure, there's a particular vision of what I have, of what I want to be. Sorry. I want to be this way. This means I'm healed. People are going to respect me. Either it's bitches on my arms, or it's a fancy car, or it's respect, or it's being a hero, or it's my dad saying I love me, I love you. And that would be the thing, right? So dad is like, oh, Alok, I'm sorry, I love myself. So oftentimes, even when you deal with the insecurity, there's a certain element that is you, which is specific to you. And ambition can come from that. So I don't think it means that you're not healed or not fixed. In fact, I think everyone is unique. Yeah, so we had one of our best, so someone's asking, how do you deal with crippling shame? We have a 2-hour video about shame. So we've got a couple of other lectures on the channel, but then on the membership side, we did a deep dive into shame. Highly recommend you all check it out. How do you deal with crippling shame? I think there are a couple of different ways. The first is to understand where it came from. Second is to act in spite of it and practice acting in spite of it. I think that's hard, but I think a lot of shame is like getting new experience. So I don't know if this makes sense, but the majority of people will say like, okay, you should go see a therapist. That's a good answer. But the majority of people who have problems do not overcome those problems with the help of a therapist. Most human beings on the planet just overcome problems on their own or with the support of their social circle. And so a big part of this is if you're someone who's like stuck with a problem, I think the most common reason why people stay stuck is that their day-to-day experience does not change at all. Like it's really hard to dig yourself out of a hole if you're like in the same environment that put you in the hole. So if your day is I get up, I go to work, I come home, I do laundry, I play video games, I go to sleep. I get up, I go to work, I come home, I get high, I go to sleep. I get up, I go to work, I come home, my parents yell at me. If that's your day, that environment has produced your current state. And that's why we stay in these situations for so long, because like we're in this state that is shaping us in this way, which is why it was really helpful for me. Like I had to go to an ashram. And that's where like I want y'all to really understand there are certain principles that shape the way that we perceive ourselves. And environment is huge. So oftentimes when people are really stuck, I try to start with like, what is the smallest thing that you can do? And I'm not the only one, right? People will say that. And what you really have to understand is there's one very simple principle, which is that the person that you will wake up as tomorrow is influenced by the actions that you take today. And the really tricky thing is that if you're very, very ashamed or you have a lot of mental problems, right? I don't mean that like in a bad way, like as in like, oh, you have a lot of mental problems. Like, I mean, literally, if your mind has many different difficulties that exist within it, I want you to think about how many days have you had that contribute to your state of mind. And generally speaking, you need a lot to fix that. Now, the good news is it's nowhere near 1-to-1. With intentional effort, I think somewhere between 10 to 25% of the time that things have been bad is how long it takes to fix. So if someone has been depressed for 10 years, I think it takes somewhere between 1 and 2.5 years to fix that. That's like my back of the napkin clinical experience. It's a lot of work, but with intentional effort, it can be done. Hey y'all, hope you enjoyed today's video. We talk about a bunch of topics like this on the channel, so be sure to subscribe for more. If you're already subscribed, GG, and we'll see you in chat.